Rain tapped the window in soft, steady beats, like a hand knocking from the other side. Mara sat hunched on the leather chair in her parlor, sleeves rolled to the elbow, her pale skin raw and bare beneath the harsh lamp. On the table beside her lay the ash-filled vial, the last fragment of her husband Caleb, who had died 2 months ago in a car wreck that had left her breathless and broken. She had begged to keep some of his ashes when the cremation was done, whispering to the mortician like a thief, "Please, just a little, I can't let him go." They had obliged, eyes softened by pity. Now that vial was open, the gray dust mixed carefully with black ink in a small ceramic bowl, swirling like storm clouds. The tattoo gun buzzed like a swarm of wasps. Mara had never tattooed anyone before, least of all herself, but Caleb had been an artist, the kind who left unfinished sketches scattered across their house. He had drawn roses, ravens, and wild abstract symbols she never quite understood. Tonight she pressed the needle into her skin, etching those very sketches into her forearm, carving his language into her flesh. Pain bloomed, raw and immediate, but it grounded her. She wasn't trying to be brave, she was trying to feel him again. Every puncture was an invocation, a promise that his body and hers would never fully separate. When she rinsed the tattoo with alcohol, something strange happened. A faint shimmer ran through the lines, the ash-infused ink glowing like it caught the moonlight. Mara blinked, shook her head. The light was gone. Her arm throbbed, and she thought perhaps she'd imagined it. She stumbled to bed, clutching her bandaged arm close, whispering Caleb's name like a prayer. That night, she dreamed of him not as the loving man she remembered, but as a shadow pacing the edges of her vision, whispering words she could not catch. By morning, the ink had begun to bleed, not outward. Her bandage was dry, but through the skin itself. Faint black threads wormed upward toward her shoulder, spreading like veins of coal under pale flesh. She gasped, tugging at her sleeve. No, no, no. But alongside her panic came a sound, a whisper, Caleb's voice, hoarse and intimate, brushing the inside of her skull. "Mara, love, I'm here." She froze. Tears sprang instantly. "Caleb? You wanted me close," the voice sighed, almost tender. "You pulled me in." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the bed, clutching her arm as though it were a phone line connecting them across the veil. Days passed. She stopped answering calls, stopped going to work. The whispers grew sharper, fuller. Caleb's voice guided her hand when she cooked, hummed his favorite songs through her ears when the silence grew heavy. He told her he loved her when the nights became unbearable. She began adding more tattoos, feverishly, spreading his ashes further under her skin. Her thighs, her ribs, her chest. Each design carried more of him, more of his voice. But there was something else too. His tone shifted. Words became edged with bitterness. Secrets slipped from his whispers like venom. It began with little things. "You know your sister never liked me," he murmured. "She told me once you were too soft, too weak to stand alone." Mara dismissed it at first. Grief, imagination. But the more ink she carved, the more confessions came. Caleb's voice spilled secrets of debts he'd hidden, affairs he'd hinted at, lies about where he had been on those late nights. The husband she'd worshipped unraveled before her ears. "Stop it," she screamed into the mirror, scratching at the designs that now sprawled like a dark forest across her skin. But his voice only laughed, low and bitter, echoing from the ink itself. Mara tried to burn the tattoos with a lighter, pressing flame to her skin until she wept from the smell of singed flesh. The whispers only grew stronger. "You can't get rid of me," Caleb sneered. "You carried me inside you. You wanted the truth." His words scratched her brain like claws. At night, her arm twitched and moved of its own accord, dragging symbols across notebooks in a language she couldn't read, spirals, jagged crosses, and eyes that stared from the page. She tore them up, but more always appeared, ink blooming in her sleep. Her neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, knocked one evening, concerned. "Mara, sweetheart, are you all right? Haven't seen you outside in weeks." Mara cracked the door, hiding her arms under a shawl. "I'm fine," she lied, though her eyes burned and her house smelled faintly of iron and smoke. The whispers surged. "She's nosy. She'll take you away from me." Mara's hand twitched toward the kitchen drawer. She slammed the door shut, heart pounding. She pressed her ear against the wood as Mrs. Donnelly shuffled away, shame twisting in her gut. "Good girl," Caleb cooed. "You're mine." Desperate, Mara went back to the tattoo parlor where Caleb had once worked. His old partner Felix barely recognized her. She showed him the bleeding tattoos, the spreading ink. His face went pale. "Ash tattoos," he whispered. "You shouldn't." "God, Mara, that's dangerous." She begged him for help, but he only shook his head, muttering about binding the spirit and doors that don't close once opened. He told her to stop tattooing. She left furious. That night, Caleb's whispers were louder than ever, furious that she'd sought another man's help. The ink pulsed like a heartbeat beneath her skin. On the 7th week, Mara stood in front of the mirror, her body nearly covered in black. The tattoos writhed faintly, patterns shifting like snakes. "You lied to me," she whispered, voice breaking. Caleb's laughter filled the room, rattling the glass, booming from her own chest. "You never knew me, but now you do. Every sin, every secret, and you'll carry me until you die." Mara raised a kitchen knife, trembling. She pressed the blade against her inked skin. For a moment, silence. Then, "Do it. Let's finish this together," she screamed, dropping the knife. The tattoos bled suddenly, not with ink, but with fresh red blood, running down her arms and dripping onto the floor. The whispers turned to shrieks, 1,000 Calebs at once. The designs peeled themselves open like wounds, and from them came a final whisper, soft and cold. "If I can't leave you, then you'll never leave me." The last thing Mara saw in the mirror was her skin splitting, her tattoos blooming into shadowed faces that were not her husband's, but countless others screaming through her body.